probando. Probando. Aquí necesita tanta flechitas. Ah, está el video. Ya le está cogiendo todavía. Probando, probando. Está bien. 1, 2, 3, probando. Ok.
All right.
You already know what you're gonna say?
What's that?
You already know what you're gonna say?
I mean,
Want me to count
we're gonna
down?
riff. Do you want me to start though, or do you?
We're
want
live.
You can start.
Okay.
All right. So welcome everyone to the Loisaida Center. It's really a pleasure to have you here tonight, this intimate setting. My name is Alejandro Epifanio Torres. I'm the executive and artistic director of the Loisaida Center, which is the home of Loisaida Inc. This is our home for arts, culture, community building, learning, and public
Yes.
storytelling. Honoring Black history, this program is centering Afro-Puerto Rican voices, lived experiences, and the power of curating the everyday. Challenge to erasure and expand the narrative. Black history is Puerto Rican history, and tonight is an invitation to listen deeply and imagine a more truthful and cultural future together. This evening features conversation between Wanda Benvenutti and Omar Eaton-Martinez. This is an intimate gallery-style conversation. We'll start with just a conversation between Omar and Wanda, and then we'll open it up to the floor for Q&A. We're also recording this program live, and it's streaming on our YouTube channel, Loisaida TV, a 24/7 live stream of the activities, programs, and initiatives at the Loisaida Center. You can just go to Google or YouTube and search for Loisaida TV, and you'll see not only this program, but many other programs, and also basically the results from programs, so content from a lot of the participants of the Loisaida Center Artist in Residency program, and then Media Use for Justice, Equity, and Respect, as well as our latest partnership with the New York Poets Cafe, where we open our center every Wednesday for their open mic as a satellite site until they reopen the famous New York Poets Cafe on 3rd Street. So I'm going to quickly try to go over the bios here of Omar and Wanda for prosperity. So we welcome Omar Eaton-Martinez tonight, a steward and history and builder of community, the kind of person who understands that our stories don't live just in books, but in places and in memory, and the people who keep them alive. Omar serves as the Senior Vice President of the Historic Sites at the National Trust for Historic Preservation, where he leads the preservation, interpretation, and overall care of 28 historic sites across the country. So they can help tell the future of our American story. Before that, he led historical resources for Prince George County, overseeing house museums, an aviation museum, archaeological parks, and the Black History Program, always centering education, outreach, and new ways to engage the public. He also guided interns and fellows at the Smithsonian National Museum of American History, and his path includes service at the National Park Service and the National Museum of the American Latino Commission, and NASA as well. Omar's work is grounded in coalition building, diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusion, including leadership with museums and race, transformation and justice, and Museum Hue, and the Museum Site for Social Action Project. He's a proud member of Pi Beta Sigma fraternity, and most importantly, a husband and father of 4, bringing heart, responsibility, and purpose to everything he does. Tonight, we're also honored to have our photojournalist and featured Loizada artist in residence, Wanda Benvenutti, a storyteller whose camera is doing something powerful, building a record of who we are, where we come from, and how Puerto Rican life has taken root and flourished across this whole country. Wanda is a freelance photojournalist, cultural worker, writer, and a model. Proud Boricua with family roots in Salinas, Puerto Rico, and she is currently completing her first book, American Boricua, a landmark project that aims to be the first visual history of the Puerto Rican diaspora across all 50 states, capturing not just faces, but families, neighborhoods, traditions, joy, struggle, style, faith, music, and everyday resilience. Most recently, her photographs were shown in Presente Latino Life in the United States at the Smithsonian National History Museum, Molina's Family Gallery in Washington, D.C. Her work, American Boricua, Puerto Rican Life in the United States, has also been featured at the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute, and she served as the featured visual artist at the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival in 2023. And with that, I want to acknowledge that the connection between the Loizada Center and Wanda's work really came about through our support of what is La Sala de Pepe, still is La Sala de Pepe, a collaboration to really preserve our place in the Lower East Side, our place as Puerto Ricans and our place as Latinos, and a really new social club. And we were so honored to see La Sala de Pepe come alive through our collaboration, and even more honored to still have Pepe here collaborating with us and bringing together forces that keep us together in place. So Pepe, for those of you that don't know him, was born in Puerta de Tierra in 1951. Sorry, Pepe. And then he came to the Lower East Side at 19 and quickly became committed community member, educator, activist, working across early childhood education, affordable housing, placekeeping, cultural organizing, and public space. Pepe, take it away and tell us a little bit more about how Wanda came to La Sala de Pepe with American Boricua.
Pepe for president.
Good afternoon. It's always a pleasure to be part of the Loizada Center that's been here for decades already, and they were always been supporter of La Sala, which is a project that started in my sala, in my living room, in 73 Avenue C. I actually, before La Sala came to alive, I was collaborating with Loizada Center, particularly with the Fiesta de Cruz, which is an event that they help me to sponsor every year during the month of May. And La Sala, it came to be because there was some commercial space opened up in my building, and I needed to expand the space for my record collection, which is thousands of records and books, which I've been accumulating through the years, but it wasn't, I was a keeper. People, musicians, writers, different people used to come and do research in there. And when I had a chance to move it to a place, that's what I did. And along with La Sala de Pepe, because I also collect photos and paintings and all that, we decided to have a second name to the space, which is Photo Espacio. We opened up with an exhibit of dedicated to Charlie Rosario, which is one of the top graphic artists in the world of record covers, and that was our first exhibit. Then we had another exhibit with Máximo Colón, another known photographer in the diaspora. And in the meantime, I met Yesenia, and then through Yesenia, right, I met Wanda. And Wanda, she related to me that she was a photographer, that she had an idea for an exhibit. And, we ran with it, and it was a successful exhibit, which it was another exhibit came after that, so she moved it out. But we always had in mind another space, and that's what I recommended Alejandro to meet Wanda and to put it over here in terms of more people being exposed to it. And here we are. To me, it was an honor to meet Wanda and work with her. She was recently with me taking pictures of me. I don't know for what purpose, but something will happen, I'm sure. And the fact that we were able to move it over here, it's a testament to our resilience, to our desire to share our history with people. I spent a month in Puerto Rico, and we wrote something about it. And the title of my trip was Debí haber ido más veces. You get it where I'm coming from? So it was a success, and being there, and I'm looking forward for Wanda to go to my sister's farm and do a photo project in there, because it will be connected, because a lot of things are happening over there in the island. And by the way, the title of the second title of this residency was Generoso El de Santa Rosa. Generoso is my middle name, and Santa Rosa is a barrio that is connected to Almirante. And you know Almirante, you know what that is? That's the barrio where Benito was raised. And I was connected to that barrio because we, as children, we walked all over the place. And we used to take the cows to pasture in there, and we used to go there to cut grass for the cows. So I knew Almirante, I know Almirante. So to be, I felt some sort of a connection with Benito, el de Almirante, con Generoso de Santa Rosa. And being here and we doing things that you will hear from us in terms of La Sala, doing other things. But now it's Wanda and Omar's time, and I know we're going to have a very interesting conversation, and I'm honored that they allow me to present them tonight, even though he did it already. But welcome to Loisaida Center. And don't forget, in May, La Fiesta de Cruz and the Loisaida Festival, which are two great events, and you shouldn't miss them. It's an incredible experience if you want to know more about the Puerto Rican culture and culture in general in New York. That's a good event to come and check it out. Thank you very much. Thank you.
You know, Pepe, you came to New York the same year my father did, and I can't really, that I love you. I told Pepe I was having a really tough day, because sometimes people ask, what kind of person does the same story for 20 years? And you do have to be a little bit out there to trust that when Spirit calls you, it's the right choice to pick up the phone. And he said, well, what do you need? I'm always here for moral support, but what do you need? And that is what family does. And when I started this work, it really was a living prayer to show that our experience of family can be as expansive and inclusive as our island is. And he said, vamos, let's go see Alejandro. And this is how this was born. And it's been such a joy to continue to work with you, Alejandro. Thank you for reminding me of who we are. And we have so much to teach the world about what true family is. It is love in action.
Absolutely. First of all, I'm geeking out right now. Because I'm in Loisaida Cultural Center, and I've heard about this place for so long. And I've never had the opportunity to be here. And shouting out to the Museum Jedi folks, we're doing a simulcast on Instagram Live. This opportunity to talk to Wanda, who we were connected through a mutual friend, Ahmad Ward, who is the executive director of a place called Historic Mitchellville, Freedom Park.
And he's, I mean, I'm just going to gas him up because he's my
Yeah,
dear
do it,
brother
do
of
it,
20
do
plus
it.
years. Ahmad Ward is probably the most important civil rights educator and activist curator in the United States. And I'm
Shout
not
out.
just saying it because I love him. He has done things with my work and has brought it to places that I can't describe in words. He is a spectacular human. And now we're friends, you see,
Yeah.
because that's
Yeah.
another reason that
That's
family
it.
can be bigger.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. He brought us together, and I love this connection. When Wanda was able to explain to me about the project American Boricua, as someone who always was looking for ways to complicate the diaspora, I was like, this is it. It doesn't get better than this, right? Instead of having sort of this binary relationship between Puerto Rico and New York, and I love New York, right? But Puerto Ricans are everywhere. I grew up in D.C., in Maryland, right? My parents came in the 60s to the D.C. area. My father was recruited to work at NASA. He was one of the first bunch of Puerto Ricans to work at NASA, Goddard Space Flight Center. He worked at NASA when NASA wasn't even 10 years old, right? And they literally went back to recruit from his school in Mayagüez ever since that time, and
And you know,
to this day.
Puerto Rico has the highest rate of engineers of any other part of the United States and has had that statistic for a very long time. I mean, I've run into these communities all over the country, particularly in places that you would never expect, like Vicksburg, Mississippi.
Vicksburg. Wow. Wow.
En serio. And the oldest Puerto Rican social club in the United States is actually not in New York City, it's in New Orleans, because we were there first.
And that makes sense, doesn't that? I mean, I go to New Orleans all the time. I'm like, I'm in another country. All the time, right? And so this creolization, this mixture, this engagement of humanity among African, European, indigenous has always been in front of mind. Obviously, for me, it's always been complicated because I was born in D.C., raised in Maryland. And I have to say this, and I hope I say it with all the clarity and respect that I mean it by. Both of my parents were born and raised in Puerto Rico. Mm-hmm. And because of the way I'm received and I'm read, I have to say that, right? Because people just don't assume that.
Right.
And they hear my hyphenated last name, Eaton-Martinez. Well, my father is Eaton, but he was born in San Mateo de Cangrejos, right?
Wow.
But his mother is from Guadalupe. And his father is from St. Thomas, right? So de verdad, yo soy afro-caribeño, right?
Yes.
Like, so I got the French, the Spanish, the English all going on at the same time. Schaumburg, gracias.
Yes.
Don't get me started on
Schaumburg,
Schaumburg, Pepe, because, listen.
I did invite Joy. She couldn't come, but I
Oh,
invited
good.
her.
No, I reached
Yes,
out to her, too. I'm
yes.
glad you did, too. Joy's great. Joy
Joy
Bivens.
Bivens is the current executive director of the Schaumburg Center.
Wonderful
And also,
woman.
we know her through Ahmad also. Like,
That's
this
right.
is how
that's
small
right,
the world
that's
is.
Right. That's right. We're
Yes.
all in the same field. But I remember walking down the street and seeing Schaumburg, and I was an African American studies student, and oh man, what a blessing it was for this white German dude to give all these black books. That's what I thought. That's what I thought. And then I found out not only is he black, he's Puerto Rican. I mean, I can't even express to you the feelings that ran through my body when I understood that. And also his connections to the Virgin Islands and things like that.
Right.
I mean, I was done.
Well, I want to.
Sorry to, I have
No,
to
it's
talk
okay.
a little bit, but I didn't know about Schaumburg until I came to New York. But when I found it in the Daily News magazine that came on Sundays, and when I read that, I said, what is this?
Mm.
And that, I mean, he's my spiritual father
Yeah.
in terms of collection.
Yeah.
And I was doing what he was doing.
Right.
I was writing letters to people in Europe
Wow.
about Latin music.
Wow, wow.
And that's what the man was doing. And in Puerto Rico, they don't recognize him at all. And in Harvard, they have, in Princeton, there's a university that has a chair. And in Puerto Rico, they don't even mention him anywhere.
They're starting to,
They're
to
starting
mention him a
they're starting
little
to
bit.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
recently.
And it's because
Yeah.
of Dr. Mayra Santos
Absolutely.
Febres.
Yes.
Another one.
She's a champion of recognizing that Afro Puerto Rican history has to be front and center. And I will say, Omar, because we talked about this in our Zoom a few weeks ago, how easy it is to fall into these tropes that U.S. history class, I mean, we've all been in class, we were all different ages, but those of us who were educated here were told a lie.
That's right. That's right.
We were told a lie.
That lie, it inspires rage, right? I remember being a teacher in New York City. I taught in the South Bronx, and I was blessed to have a supervisor, administrator who saw something in me and allowed me to create a class called African American History. And
What year was this?
This was in 2000.
Wow, okay.
And I remember he sat down with me first. He was like, look, I'm going to support you in doing this, and I want you to do this, but you have to have the rage talk with your students first.
Yeah.
Because some of your students are going to be presented this information for the very first time. And I taught in alternative high school, right? What does that mean? That means for those who are old enough to understand who the sweat hogs were, my entire school was sweat hogs.
Welcome back, Cotter. Welcome back,
Cotter.
Eaton-Martinez.
So I had kids in there who really weren't kids, and they had been incarcerated. Some of them had to drop out because their parents had passed away or were too hooked up on drugs to work, and all kinds of things. Had a child early in life, and so I was dealing with that, right? And so we sat down, we had the talk. I gathered myself, and I rearranged my lessons to adapt for that, and then that's how I launched in. But that rage for absence of knowledge is real.
Yes, and I wanted to touch on, because it is Black History Month, I had mentioned before we started the talk formally that I've always made a point of showing American Boricua in public spaces to overlap on the calendar with both Black History Month and Latino History Month, because we don't actually have to choose a side when we literally embody all of the sides. And I want to acknowledge a really wonderful woman I met when I was working on the book in Memphis, Tennessee. Her name is Dr. Yvonne Fournier, and she's from Puerto Rico. She was the first Puerto Rican woman to have a nationally syndicated newspaper column in the United States in the 1980s. And it's interesting that people, because I, like most visual journalists, I always come from a gut place first, and then the information kind of filters in a little bit later. She was one of the first people that understood the importance of this work on a larger scale before it was my brain that finally registered it. And I have to give her credit for this. She's so brilliant. She said, what you're doing is you're showing the world the future and the past expressed in present time. And that's who we are as Puerto Rican people. Dr. Maida says this often, that we are the world in one island. And in that is strength and the truth and the nuance of that, and that the Black experience is very different than the Black Caribbean experience, very different from, my father was a Black indigenous Puerto Rican man with an 8th grade education. I was born here, and here I am, right? In one generation, that's still possible in the contradiction of how we express and live freedom, because who exactly is free in 2026 in North America?
Yeah.
It's something I examine in my work very, very deliberately.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the dialogue that your project is creating is uber important, because we need the dialogue among the diaspora, but we also need the dialogue with the island.
Yes.
Right? Because this idea of how people view race differently is important. It has to be unpacked. Yeah. British colonialism did a number on Black people.
Woohoo, still doing it.
But Spanish colonialism did it too. They just did it differently, right? It's just a different flavor of white supremacy. White supremacy is malleable. It changes very easily, like liquid, right? It takes the form of the cup.
And
right?
that's in tandem with the social construct of whiteness constantly being this moving target. It's always a moving target.
It's an invention, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so what does that mean then when we struggle with parts of our cultural expression in our communities who believe that white adjacency is a good idea?
That's right.
Which it absolutely is a terrible idea.
That's right.
But it's so much more difficult to show people that than to just tell them that they're being idiots, right? Because that's not very effective, even though given the current political climate, it's very easy to give in to this rage. We're doing this on President's Day for a reason.
Right. No, erasure is real, and erasure has a lasting impact.
Yeah.
And I think even talking to my parents about what they learned or didn't learn around the history in Puerto Rico was interesting to understand that. So the work that Dr. Mayra Santos Febros is doing with the Africana Studies program at University of Puerto Rico is uber important, right?
Yeah.
This is something that's going to cascade, and I can already see the benefits. I've met her students. I've mentored some of her students, and they're different. There's not. See, I had to have conversations with my family around this idea of a racial democracy, right? Going to the island, pero eso no existe aquí. That's a lie.
It's just
It's a
expressed
lie.
in a very direct colonial manner.
But right, they
Yes.
say it was all sincerity of the heart, but like it's a lie. When my uncle
Our racism is not the same.
no, it's all right. So my uncle takes me to Vieques, and which is where my maternal grandparents are from, and my maternal grandfather was a very African presenting person, 6'3", big Watusi, big black man. My grandmother, bien pequeña, very white presenting. So what happens? He tells me all the places they hid on the island while they were courting.
Wow.
Are you going to talk to me about racial democracy? I
And
don't think so.
you know what's so crazy about that, Omar, is that I have such vivid memories. So I'm from North Philly. There was a little section of my childhood. We lived in Central Florida, which was interesting. And my mother would drive from Philly back to Florida, and there were sundown towns. As a little girl, she would tell me, you got to duck behind, put a blanket over yourself for safety. I mean, I have a vague memory. She told me this years and years and years later. Oh, yeah, we had to leave that restaurant. I saw the waitress spit on your hot dog. Ooh. Right. And I'm like a 5-year-old kid, and I'm very excited. I've always loved to travel. I think most photojournalists are a little bit intense in that way, that our eyes and our minds are hungry, constantly hungry, and need to be fed. And I didn't remember, because I'm a kid.
Right.
So why would I hide?
Right.
It would never occur to me to be afraid.
Not logical
And that's
to-
part of the
yeah.
rage now in the 21st century, is that I've driven to every corner of this country alone more than once. I know the interstate highway system like the back of my hand. And the fact that I can no longer travel alone because it's not as safe given the current political climate is enraging.
Yes.
It's enraging. And Mississippi is the only state by design that the interstate highway system is not direct. So you have to hop onto these weird little weird only in that the energy was definitely unsafe. I'm from a really rough around the edges part of North Philadelphia. And it takes a lot to freak me out. It was the only place where I literally felt, oh, wow, someone needs to know where I am at all times, because this could really go sideways. And I remember it was the town, Olive Branch. It was called Olive Branch, Mississippi. It's a suburb of Memphis. I was looking for a place to get coffee. I was tired. I'd been driving for 12 hours. It's the talk that every black parent has with their children. You got to keep your hands visible. Keep your hands visible. Move slowly. You have to have your ID and your insurance information in a really easy place, because it's not a matter of if, but when. And I found a gas station. Thank you, Jesus. I found a gas station, and there was a young man getting gas, and we gave each other the look. And at the time, I still had Washington State plates. I was the first Puerto Rican staff photographer at the Seattle Times. I stayed out on the West Coast for quite a while before I came back to New York, and he just knew to just be with me. And we just protected each other in that moment. And then I saw the cruiser and the look of hatred on this man's face. And the look of pure hatred. And I do this thing where I start singing soccer mom songs in my mind to keep myself calm, a lot of Britney Spears. And because it's just, okay, how American can I project in this moment as a person born in this country, pero totalmente mi espíritu y corazón está allá en la isla, because, you know, all first generation kids feel this way.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't speak English until the 3rd grade. And people, oh my God, her English is so great. And I'm like, I was born outside of Philly, New Jersey. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Like, what language was here before the Mayflower showed up? Like, have we thought about that? Hello, Florida, Nevada, California. I mean, hello.
Los Ángeles.
Exacto.
De Los Ángeles.
Los
Right.
Angeles, de Los Angeles. So,
Can I
please,
mention another person that you're talking about, Mayra, is Marielba Torres.
of course.
Sí.
Marielba,
Tiznando
yes.
País,
Tiznando el país, yes.
which I don't like to, eso de yo mismo, La Sala was contacted to set up, to build up an exhibition of
Oh,
colors.
wow, okay.
And the title of it is Las Caras Lindas,
Ah.
which is now in the 3rd iteration in another university, and we're looking forward to bring it to Lorizada Center and to the Bronx Music Hall.
Beautiful.
I'm
Beautiful.
sorry, but
No, don't be sorry. That's beautiful.
But I'm glad that you know about Marielba.
Oh, of course. No, Marielba is another one. Tremendous advocate and freedom seeker, as far as I'm concerned.
She's my sister.
Yeah, absolutely. Tiznando el País is a beautiful project, funded by Mellon and other spaces where she is encouraging different cultural institutions to do exhibitions focused on Black culture within Puerto Rico and beyond.
I have a question for you, Omar.
Please.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about that moment you realized that you were Puerto Rican in the United States, because we all have that moment.
Yeah. When was I Puerto Rican? I think, if I think back far enough, I think I was Puerto Rican when my best friend, Eddie, came to my house and sort of did like this when he heard my parents speak Spanish. And he smelled the smells of arroz con habichuela. And he heard Ismael Rivera singing Las Caras Lindas. That's when I knew I was Puerto Rican. That's when I knew it was a big deal, right? Like it was something different. And you know, it's been an interesting journey. I mean, again, I've been able to make meaning with my family.
Yeah.
But then I took it a step further and started making meaning of my identity through my scholarship. And that's when really things started to open up for me, and I was able to ask better questions of my family and of my culture so that I can understand who I am and why people always go like this when I speak Spanish, right?
Right, right. How does that translate into the work you do now? Because so much of how we shape as cultural workers, the impact of what we're called to share, it shapes so much of how the larger culture experiences spaces, and you specifically work in public spaces, which is fascinating to me as a person who's out in the field documenting what life is like as we occupy these public spaces.
Right. I think for me, it was meaningful because I knew that there was never a space for me. I go into a Black space, right, and it's not fully acknowledged my Puerto Ricanness. I go to Latino space, it's not fully acknowledged my Blackness, right?
Yeah.
So then there's this interstitial space where I just live and dangle. And in that space is where I had to start making meaning. And I made meaning through the scholarship. I made meaning through asking better questions. And now I feel comfortable in that space. And so in my work, especially as someone who was in a doctoral program in American Studies where we're always challenging ourselves, who is not at the table, it just became a part of my methodology. This is part of my epistemology, is to always understand and ask the question, who is not here? And understand that question's always going to be relevant because identity always changes and it's malleable. It changes with political climate. It changes with economic differences. It changes with the more that you know, right? The things that I knew now, I wouldn't have been able to understand them, back then, right?
Right,
So.
right. I think for me, the moment, well, there was a couple of moments, but the big one was in science class,
wow.
everybody had to read Charles Darwin, right? So on The Origin of the Species, there he is traipsing about the Galapagos Islands. When that book was published, it was 1858. So his system of classification was never intended to be used for human beings. It was supposed to be for plants and animals only, and yet it was the political and social climate of the time that his work got racialized. And that was really like the biggest push, I think, in US history with normalizing eugenics and racial hierarchy, and then all the, measuring of skulls and just this ridiculous tendency to categorize.
Scientific racism.
Right, right. And to justify what, of course, ended up becoming completely untrue in the scientific world.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Because I thought to myself, well, where do I belong? I mean, there's no
Yeah.
category for, what is Puerto Rican from North Philly? What is this?
Well, that's what I find so provocative, and this is my question for you about the title, American Boricua.
Oh,
Where
God,
did
that's
that
such a
come
great
from?
story. Okay, so I was living in Seattle. I think that a lot of young people, when they leave home, have their own version of Manifest Destiny. And mine was to leave the East Coast. If I had gotten a job in Anchorage, Alaska, I would have moved to Alaska. So the next stop was Seattle. So I ended up there, and I had such interesting conversations with everybody because maybe the numbers in Seattle in terms of diversity are obviously not what they are in New York, but the richness and the depth of the diversity in those small numbers changed me. And we were just talking about this earlier. I didn't know the difference between a Norwegian, a Finnish person, and a Swede until one of my best friends was Swedish American, who also was fluent in Spanish. She spoke 5 languages. I was hanging out at the Swedish club, learning things about this part of the world that I knew nothing about. And it came to me in a dream. American Boricua came into me in a dream. And I was sitting on my porch. At the time, I was a picture editor for a very big technology company. And I would have one corporate computer on one side of my desk and then my personal computer on the other side of the desk. And I'd literally be working, because people sometimes ask, how have you been doing this for so long? And I'm like, all creative people who are genuine cultural workers have 4 careers. All of us do. And I mean, I'm in a parka and I'm staring at Mount Rainier. I have my coffee because I had to live edit a search engine for this big company at 5 in the morning because I was working with the East Coast editors. And I was looking at the mountain. The sun was coming up over the mountain. And I was like, how can I change that archetype of a city on the hill? Which is what the historian Daniel Boorstin references. If you haven't read his work, if you can just ignore the antiquated language, Daniel Boorstin wrote a 3-volume set on American history. I'm obsessed with the first book. It's called America, the Colonial Experience. And he writes about the city on the hill and this ideal utopian dream of a democracy that represents everyone. See, because, okay, I'm going to get super nerdy, please forgive me. In most evolutionary democracies, I'm talking about the Magna Carta, things that happen in England, et cetera, this was this idea of many people becoming one ideal, right? Well, in the United States, it was very inverted. It was of one many. It was the other way around. And so there was always this spirit and ethos of self-determination. So we created economies, railroads, identities, categories. There was no system to even have a size of a shoe. That had to be invented too.
Right.
We didn't have small, medium, and large for clothing sizes. That was invented.
Right.
The whole history of the blue jeans coming from African American tradition and then becoming commercialized. Right, it was just this self-invention over and over on one side, and then of course genocide on the other, because people who were here first didn't ask for everyone else to show up. It's really important to say that out loud, So I was obsessed with this idea, wait a minute, what if I could show that there can be a version of a city on the hill for everyone that's genuine and doesn't have anything to do with a pre-described, scripted, and extremely rigid practice of what freedom can be in real time. So I wrote a letter to P.D. Thomas, who was one of my mentors. He ended up becoming such a dear man it's the greatest privilege of my life to be asked to speak at his wake in Berkeley. I wrote him a letter. It was the same morning I was watching the sunrise over Mount Rainier, and I had just read a book. It was called Puerto Rican Writers in English, and he had a really powerful essay in this book. And I figured out where he lived because I'm a journalist. I figure things out, and I wrote him a letter. And his wife called me about a week later, and she said, "Petey would like to meet you." I was like, okay. So she said, "When are you coming to California?" I said, "Well, when do you want me to come?" And I got a cooler, and I went to Pike Place Market. She told me he really loved fresh salmon because that's what we do as Puerto Ricans. Like, it all starts with food. And I threw the fish in, it was like wiggling from, the ship from Alaska. It was very fresh. Well, where we're from in Salinas, it's like known for its seafood, right? So I started making these pilgrimages down to El Cerrito, is a town right next to Berkeley. It's where they bought a house. At the time, he had been doing quite a bit of activist work and teaching people in the jail system, incarcerated people, to write poetry. And he said, "Wanda, tell me more about this. Tell me more about American Boricua." And he would freestyle poetry, and I would cry. And we just shared our hearts. And he said, "I'm so happy someone's finally doing this. This has always been my dream that someone would do this." And then he introduced me to Frank Espada, who lived like down the block. And Frank and I would speak, and he would say, "You know what? It was always my dream to go to every U.S. state. I'm so, again, happy someone's finally doing this." And I said, "Listen, Frank, if you hadn't started, then I wouldn't have had the blueprint if you hadn't started." You
It's
see?
amazing.
Yes, and that's really how it began. It was a very nerdy intellectual pursuit at the beginning, and it evolved into a very heartfelt need to share with the world the beauty of who we are.
I'm so glad that you got to, yeah, please. I'm so glad that you got to build a relationship with Frank Espada and Perry Thomas. I can't tell you how jealous I am right now. Perry Thomas.
He's really lovely, and I will say, Omar, that if there's anyone that really moves your heart, write them a letter, because if you're spiritually aligned, then you're already family, And he said, "I'm so happy you reached out to me. Why didn't we meet sooner?" And I cried because he said, "I felt your spirit. I felt it." Yeah,
when I heard he passed away in 2011,
I will never get over it.
Yeah.
I can't speak of him in the past tense. When I have a bad day, I hear his voice the same way I hear my parents, who have since passed. "Nena, get back to work. Tenemos trabajo.
Yeah.
Vamos."
Yeah. That's what you need from Los Ancianos, right? We need that. And although I didn't get to meet Perry, when I talked to you all about me making meaning of my identity, Down These Mean Streets was absolutely part of that journey.
It was the first.
Absolutely.
It was the first book that absolutely described that experience of the Puerto Rican reality in the United States. And the fact that, this book it was in 1968, 69 when it was published. Why? There has to be more of this, yes?
Absolutely.
There has to be more of this.
The chapter Between Two Sticks.
Oh, yeah.
I can't. It was just, it was like, I was like, get out of my head. Like, it was just, I was so connected to that work. I ended up reading 7 Long Times. I read Stories from My Body. I read everything after that because he just became the one, right? Because that's all I knew at the time as I was continuing to discover other writers and other thinkers in this work.
My mom said something really interesting. She said, "Wanda, your life is so interesting. What have you been up to?" And I said, "Well," and I started to tell her a story of how I would drive down to Petey and Susie's house, and she was like, hold up. You just drove to Petey Thomas's house?" And I was like, "Mom, you said you wanted to hear the story." And she said, "I don't care." Oh, she said, "Okay, I don't think you understand." And I'm like, "Okay, Mom, I think I do, but I'm not. Okay, just tell me." So she said that at that time, because my mother was a political activist, and so much of what I do is inspired by what she did, because we don't always understand that our elders put their lives on the line for us. And I can't believe that I didn't know this until she was well into her 80s, that my mother was both a member of CORE and SNCC, the Congress on Racial Equality, and the Student Nonviolent Coordination Committee. And these were young people that were very interested in creating a world that made sense and told the truth in a time very similar to our time now, where it was very much a risk. And she said to me, well, Wanda, in that time, there were 3 books that we all read in the movement for collective liberation. We were reading Soul on Ice, we were reading the autobiography of Malcolm X, and we were reading Down These Mean Streets. Those were our 3. Those were our 3 Bibles, were those books. And I just, then I had to like take a moment.
Yeah. But that's what it is. I mean, I think when I talk to people on the Museum Jedi show, I like to talk to people about the genealogy of the leaders that inspired their leadership. And so to understand that they read those books to inspire their activism is meaningful.
Absolutely.
Right? When I think about, when you ask me, well, what shapes my work? Well, certainly the way I grew up and the way I understood identity shapes my work. But I also riff off the Panthers, the Lords. Like,
I mean, you want to take it all the way back, like W.E.B. Du Bois? I mean, double consciousness. I wrestled with this as a college student.
Yes.
And I thought, sir, but there are those of us with like 4 consciousness. I mean, there's worlds within worlds within worlds. And when he would discuss the veil. Ooh, wow.
Oh, my goodness. Wretched of the Earth.
Yes.
Wretched of the
Absolutely.
Earth, Amy Césaire, Discourse on Colonialism, all those things are meaningful, right? Because it helps us understand how we survive colonialism, how we understand diaspora, how we build off of coalition rather than being separated, because the colonization teaches us to be separated, and we're not meant to be separated.
Well, isn't that the main justification for colonization, is to perpetuate these systems of the status quo that express themselves in white supremacy, right?
Absolutely. I mean, when you have events like the Berlin Conference, I mean, the audacity of European countries coming together to divide up the continent of Africa.
I'd like to say a comment, and you brought it first about colonialism. I didn't want to bring it first, but we can't talk about the political experience without talking about colonialism.
Of course not.
And this whole struggle or life of natural resistance.
Yes.
Desde la arroz con habichuelas all the way to the political radical struggles.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Active resistance. And I think what Juan Antonio Cortez had said many years ago when he lived in New York for a while and lived the Puerto Rican experience in New York, he defined us as, I guess, and many other communities, internal colonies, because we had to take care of ourselves, we had to protect ourselves, to deal with the rest of the communities. And that's when we got a lot of coalitions. But él hablaba de estas colonias internas, and that's why I believe, we maintain so many things from over 100 years. The first Puerto Ricans who came, who would speak in another way, who would do things like the Boriquis in Hawaii. They play the cuatro that you don't hear in Puerto Rico 100 years ago.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's important for us to make those connections around colonialism and understand its intimate relationship with racism, because those things cannot exist without each other.
Right.
They're twins, they're besties.
General Miles said, "We're here to civilize you." That's why.
I always have to explain to people too that there was a reason there was no army on the island, because, all right, getting back to the history, 1898, end of the Spanish-American War. Puerto Rico was really like this afterthought in what was at that time the dying vestiges of the Spanish colonial empire, and we had a fully functioning bicameral body legislature of government for close to 68 years. We were on the same route that Jamaica was on to free themselves from England. We were on the way. And, someone decided to cut up the Caribbean, and here we are. because we have such parallels with the history of Ireland and England, also with the Philippines and the United States, and that was around the same time.
Yeah, I mean, all these things are important to understand, but it's also important to understand how you can disrupt it, right? How you can disrupt it. So I believe preservation is a tool for social justice.
Ooh, say that again.
I believe preservation is a tool for social justice. An example, 2 examples on the island. One is La Hacienda de Esperanza. That is in Manatí, right? So the National Trust for Historic Preservation has a grant-making arm called the African American Cultural Heritage Action Fund. In 2018, Ahmad and I were a part of a summit called the Teaching Summit on Slavery. At the time, I was at the Smithsonian. And they brought about 60 of us together to grapple with a tool that we could create that allowed people to tell the truth about slavery with descendants, right? Not just from the scholars, not just from the haves, but with the descendants of the enslaved in particular. So we did that summit. We created a rubric called Interpreting Slavery with Descendant Communities. Fast forward, the Action Fund funded La Hacienda de Esperanza to implement this rubric on their interpretation of the site. So then they, in turn, started doing more research with the communities around them in Manatí to start to create an interpretation of that site of enslavement from the point of view of the descendants. And they did that. It was beautiful, right? Because now this is a justice-centered effort. We are rebuking colonialism. We are rebuking white supremacy. We are saying that those lies meant something. Their faces now, their names.
Right.
There's a memorial inside the Manatí. You can go and see the
Slavery
memorial.
is not an abstract concept. It was
No.
a reality for people who were exploited, who are continue to be exploited.
Absolutely.
And the fact that there has been a shift in language from the use of the word slave to enslaved person is really significant.
Huge. It's huge. And now you can go there and you can see this wonderful collection of, it's like 300 plus machetes.
Wow,
Right.
wow.
And you have to say machetero, right? We know what the machete is, right? Machete is not just for cutting cane, right? It's a tool of liberation,
Yes.
right? It's a tool of dignity. And when he showed you how to cut the cane, you understood the labor it took. When you're out there in the field with no cover, right? Cutting that cane. And so there's an opportunity to preserve stories by preserving these landscapes, preserving these structures, centering the stories that need to be centered to rebuke colonialism.
The best way to rebuke a lie is to shine a light on what the truth is. And it's part of the reason that when I go to a new community, and I do this just as a human being, but I also believe deeply that this is a very important journalistic practice. I don't decide what the story is. I find the elders in the community. I find the people who have been running the social clubs. There's a really wonderful woman in Las Vegas who runs she owns the only Puerto Rican restaurant in like the entire city. She pulled out her little black book. She's like, okay, who do you need to see? And I waited for her to guide me.
I love it.
So then I could actually be the channel to record in the most honest and loving and accurate way possible. Because once you decide that you know something, you've closed your eyes to the truth.
Human-centric. It's human-centric. You're centering humanity. And that's what should be centered. I come from preservation traditionally centers bricks, nails, decorative arts, sometimes landscapes, but it didn't in the past really engage with how the humanity engaged with those things. That's the preservation, right? It's not just the structures and landscapes in isolation off to the side by themselves. It's how we engage. It's what happened there, right? These are sites of trauma in some of these spaces. And then they weren't being interpreted that way. They were being interpreted as Gone with the Wind.
Oh, my Lord,
right?
No.
As where you sip, whatever that famous drink that they drink down south.
Mint juleps.
Thank you. I knew you knew it was. I knew you knew what it was.
It's the romanticization
Romanticization,
of
absolutely.
oppression that is the thing that enrages me the most.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, look at all the happy people who are suffering. Isn't it so lovely? No, it's not. There's
not
nothing that's fun or romantic about oppression, poverty, systemic racism. Like, why? Because racism hurts everyone, but for some of us, it's fatal.
Come with me to those buildings, and let's go up to the bricks, and let's put our fingers in those fingerprints. Those fingerprints didn't belong to that rich white man who, quote unquote, owned that building. Those were child laborers, right, of African descent and indigenous descent sometimes.
Another space that you just mentioned, like Hacienda La Esperanza, is in Jayuya, Museo Casa Blanca Canales, which is the home of Blanca Canales, which was the leader of the second revolution of
Right.
Puerto Rico, the
Right.
second cry for independence, El Grito de Jayuya.
Yes,
And
yes,
it's
yes,
what you're
yes.
saying.
Yes.
You know, it's not so much the space and the flags of that particular historical moment. It's a whole spirit and essence we find it, and the research is being done. And what's most interesting, going back to the fact that I think we're all, this is from the colonial experience, this is mi tránsito en la vida, my transit in life. And coming from also the Puerto Rican Day Period as a board member, I always try to promote that we're all ambassadors to an island that does not have a formal embassy at the UN.
Right.
Right.
So therefore, all of us are ambassadors.
Well, that's why we have to actually, stand up and tell the truth.
Exactly.
Even though it's uncomfortable and it makes people who have every interest in maintaining the status quo, because one of my favorite phrases, we talked about this, remember this, Omar? The people of the global majority.
I love it. Yeah.
Because that's the truth.
Yeah.
That is the truth. So why are we fighting the truth? And the powers that be, they're so angry, right? They're so angry. It's like when right before the dinosaurs went extinct, what do they call that? The Extinction Rebellion? Right. I do believe we are at a spiritual, definitely political, economic, and social apex in this country, in this world. Are we actually going to move ourselves in progressive directions as human beings, right? That is the work of collective liberation.
Absolutely, and I think it also part of being part of a collective liberation movement is to understand that education does not just fall on K through 12. It does not just fall on K through 12. It falls on families, it falls on communities, it falls on churches, it falls on institutions that I work at and manage. Museums, house museums, historic sites, art centers. We all have to do this together.
Do you remember the first time somebody tried to tell you that you were Puerto Rican American?
I said we don't hyphenate.
You know what I say? That's like saying ATM machine.
Yeah.
Did you know that we were part of the United States? We've been citizens. Okay. Jones Act, let's get into it.
I always loved the fact that we didn't hyphenate anyway. But
No.
Omar, Wanda, just a quick time check. It's 4 minutes to 7.
Okay.
I don't know if we want to start transitioning to the Q&A. I know there's been very insightful comments coming in from the audience, but in order to capture it better, we would need to pass the mic on to you.
Was there anything you wanted to ask Omar before we transition over?
well, I did want to. We got to talk Bad Bunny, don't we?
That was going to be my first question.
We got it. I got my Cabo Rojos on today.
I saw. Yes.
But let me just put it in context. 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago, I never listened to one Bad Bunny song. Not one. The reason why I listened to this album is because an elder told me to listen to it.
Oh, that's interesting.
Malta Moreno Vega.
Okay.
Malta Moreno Vega was like, Omar, you have to listen to this album.
Dr.
I was
Vega
like-
is the executive director of the Caribbean Cultural Center uptown.
I was like, you're telling me this? I said, I'm going to listen. And I was so glad. Excellent work. Excellent. It's heartfelt, sincere.
Benito's going to get involved with American Boricua in some way. I just
Some way,
feel it. He
we
will.
got it,
Yes,
I
he
feel
will.
it too. It's because it's the right thing.
I know you're watching. Come on.
It's the right thing. And the Super Bowl performance was excellent. One of my questions that I think that I wonder about, even with the Kendrick Lamar performance the year before,
Yes.
is who are these artists working with, right? They're super smart. I don't put anything, but
Yeah.
I know that they got to have a team of people because the symbolism was like
Yes.
explosive.
And you
right?
know, the people that got married really actually did get married.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
And also,
Which
that
was
little
so
boy
amazing.
was not the little boy that they said.
Oh,
that
I
everybody
know. I
thought it
mean,
was.
come on.
But,
Yeah.
you know, it's an interesting thing.
I think this conversation actually brings a lot of substance to those that watched that halftime show and did not completely get it.
Right.
You know, you've touched upon so many of these, you know, historical symbolisms and, you know, experience, right, as
Yes.
Puerto Ricans that for someone that doesn't know, they don't know. Pero para el
Right.
que sabe, sabe.
That's
See.
right.
You
that's
know?
right.
I
And
especially loved that he made a point of highlighting the tragedy called Luma.
Yeah.
That was very, very, very well done visually, because the fact that the people in our homeland continue to be exploited, and we don't even have to get into the vulture fund pension mess that's not working, but the symbolism of light was so powerful.
Yeah.
There was a lot to it, but I before I pass on the mic to the audience, I do want to get your take on this because I know that you mentioned before language being used as a weapon, and I've always had a problem with the word American
Yes.
for obvious reasons. And
Yes.
the Bad Bunny show, you know, actually reinforced what an American is,
Yes.
which is everyone that lives in this continent, right?
Absolutely.
Not just the United Statesian, because if we want to be real, and that's what someone from the United States should be called,
Right.
because we're all Americans, and he
Absolutely.
highlighted that, and it plays directly into the way you're using the word American, right?
It was very deliberate, and I'm really glad you brought that up, Alejandro, because I've had a few people get a little bit offended by my choice, and I always tell them that American Boricua is what you want it to be. It is an invitation. It is not a statement of meaning. It is not a category.
Yeah.
It isn't a box. It is an invitation to imagine the largest and most inclusive expression of what American identity can be. Because somos puertorriqueños, the blood of the world runs through our veins, and we can't choose a side in a racially divided country when we literally reflect all of those phenotypes.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a wonderful way to be provocative.
Well, yes, there was that
right?
too.
I mean, we gotta provoke thought. We gotta provoke dialogue, and we have to disrupt. These master narratives have existed way too long.
We need to take the word back, and that was really when this title kept coming to me in the dreams. In particular, after I would spend time with Piri Thomas, because he literally would freestyle poetry, and I'm thinking to myself, I am the luckiest Puerto Rican on all of the universes. Because he would just, I had this seat to this divinely guided, creative being who visited us in the form of this body at that time. And I said, well, Piri, do you think I should change? Oh, no, tan perfecto. No. He understood on a deep spiritual level what I was doing before I think I understood it.
Yeah. Obviously he's masterful in everything he ever touched, but I also think about the idea of, again, just complicating who we are as a people. Like, I'm tired of people boxing us, right?
Yes.
And the idea that you're going to Vicksburg, Mississippi, you're going to different parts of the country.
The
and calling
Catholic
us out.
priest at the church, an Irishman, spoke fluent Spanish. It was fascinating.
I mean,
He's
I
like,
love
I know
that.
all about Puerto Rico. It's a wonderful place. I was like, oh, okay. It was great. There are people who love us that you would never know unless you were willing to have those conversations, right? And let go of ideas that we've even been told are true, which usually 9 out of 10 times are not true.
No, it's just always interesting to me. I mean, even when I went to Milwaukee and I saw us there. My wife and I spent a good few days on Division Street.
Oh, yeah.
In Chicago.
Yes,
and
yes.
I was blown away
Yes.
by that community.
Also, the only historic district dedicated to Puerto Rican culture, not in New York City, but in Humboldt Park, Chicago.
How about that?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Paseo Boricua.
Yeah, the two things say quickly. One is the resurgence of bomba music in Puerto Rico, which is la música, una música de liberación que fue usada por los esclavos para comunicar los levantamientos. There was a point, and there's something that was written by the Centro de Estudio Puertorriqueño 50 años atrás, donde hablaban de que la bomba iba a desaparecer. Pero la bomba ha tenido un resurgimiento en Puerto Rico que está increíble, y parte de ese resurgimiento es, y eso después lo podemos separar, se lo puedo explicar, el resurgimiento de la bomba es donde como la diáspora fue importante en el resurgimiento de la bomba en Puerto Rico, y yo tengo las pruebas para decírtelo lo que pasó. Y entonces el otro elemento que trae ese resurgimiento fue la mujer. La mujer ha sido un elemento bien importante en este resurgimiento de la bomba, que es increíble. O sea, en Puerto Rico hay mujeres que están tocando y cantando bomba, que le tienen que decir a los machos, siéntate que ahora yo voy a tocar, y ahora yo voy a bailar, y ahora yo voy a cantar. Es increíble, y yo me siento orgulloso de que Alejandro nos prohibió un espacio para tener un bombazo aquí una vez al mes.
I see.
Porque es bien importante que la gente entienda la profundidad de eso. Y lo otro es el 100 aniversario del nacimiento de Tita Curé Alonso, un compositor, bueno, las caras lindas y no digo más nada. Tú sabes, con eso se lo digo todo, la importancia de él dentro de la música. Si tú hablas de música de salsa, tienes que hablar de Tite y de la bomba, porque la salsa no es otra cosa que un híbrido de la bomba, la plena, la música jíbara, cocinada aquí en el sur del Bronx, y después se tiene por el
And that's such an important expression of the African presence in our culture, is bomba and plena music.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I love the trajectory, right, from bomba, brought over from Africa, and the idea of erasure happening and people stepping in. I definitely need to call out the great work of Melanie Maldonado and Propa. She's done great work working with folks on the island, like with the Cepeda family and people who they have a whole historical society right now, San Mateo de Cangrejo, so they're doing amazing work. And she also has an historical marker program where she's putting up historical markers telling the story of bomba connected to slavery and connected to these families who lifted it up, right? So it's important work. It's important to connect it to salsa, right?
Yes.
I remember my father, I grew up listening to salsa with my father on his 8-track, right? And my father is an island Rican. So I assumed it was born on an island until I did my research and found out it was born in the Bronx, right? And then to connect that to hip hop, because I'm a Gen Xer, I come from a hip hop generation, and understand the place that Puerto Ricans have had in hip hop since the beginning.
Absolutely.
And to see that trajectory go on to reggaeton, and that what Bad Bunny did, I mean, the future's bright. The future's bright.
It's always been bright. It's just that we can see it now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Could you come closer to the mic? And that goes for everyone else, please. Like, I don't want to be standing.
I just wanted to say, when we're talking about the term American, it's also not accidental that we find ourselves at a time when throughout the Western Hemisphere, we don't see many people outside of the United States calling themselves Americans, because the United States government, and specifically the State Department of the United States government, after the South American countries got their independence from Spain, in correspondence and in summits with the United States, would refer to themselves as Americans.
Right.
And in correspondence and at these summits, the United States government would reject that moniker for them and would actually correct them.
Right.
And would insist that only the United States and the citizens of the United States be referred to as Americans.
And it's interesting, too, with the history of the U.S. Census, because we didn't have a box for Puerto Rican in the census count for a very long time. Hispanic, non-white origin. It was so odd.
Yeah.
The whole thing was so odd. Also, Wilson Cruz, shout out. You were one of my favorite actors back in the day. My so-called life. Got to shout you out, brother.
No, it's in the census thing. I mean, the folks in the Afro-Latino Forum with Miriam Jimenez Roman and now with Josue Perea, you know, they had a whole movement where they were asking everybody to check both to count your blackness and your heritage.
Do you know how many years I checked the other box? I wrote other and I wrote Puerto Rican. Other, Puerto Rican. Now,
I wrote other and I wrote
I got
something
into a whole
different.
argument.
Every year I did it because it was just an opportunity for me to express myself because it didn't make sense. I have to have agency in identifying myself, not the government. The government is not fit for that. The government is not fit for that. There's a whole, what we learned in that process was the Office of Management and Budget is the one who defines these demographic categories.
Right.
Not even the Census Bureau itself defines it. It's the Office of Management and Budget. Who are they? And how do they get to define this?
That's Russell Belt who's putting into place Project 2025.
Well,
it's the bag holder.
Right.
the bag holders. Yeah, it just doesn't, it never clicked. And then, even if you understand the structure that was built, there was never any education to people to help them understand and make an actual political choice.
You know, my father always
on
used
the
to
outcome.
check off the black box. He just checked it. He didn't know. You know, nobody told him in the 1980s in Philadelphia that he had a choice of self-identification. He was like, well, okay, I guess I'm black.
Yeah, but it's
Right.
also like what you were saying earlier. Like there's also this adjacency to whiteness that people vie for.
Well, they still are.
And they check
Nicki
off.
Minaj.
They check off white, and there's the powers to be that would never accept them as white.
Right.
But they feel like checking it off gives them one step closer. And the idea of Spanish colonialism and how white supremacy works in that space, it's a pigmentocracy, right? It's not a one-drop rule like it is in British.
No.
So it's a pigmentocracy. So this pigmentocracy gives you steps to get up there.
And then there's
And it's false.
the economic piece, that phrase, money whitens the skin.
In
Yeah.
Brazil, Pelé was considered white. Pelé.
I mean, come on. Yeah,
Right.
it was.
There is an exhibit. Please, Derek Washington, please get up. Derek, stand up,
Derek.
about that, please.
Yeah, please, share.
Yeah, please, come on the mic.
You thought you were gonna
Thanks so much for making
to
the
see you,
trek.
my brother.
It's so nice to see
Oh,
you,
Thank
Derek.
you for coming. So it's an exhibition about 200 years of social dance, and what's centered is a lot of the elders and young people. So actually Pepe is in the exhibition as well. So these are tutorials to show people how to dance, but also people can show the different types of moves and cultures that they have. But the exhibition is really built on diaspora, so African diaspora, Latino diaspora, Puerto Rican diaspora, to see how the roots and routes of the different dances from bomba to plena. But we mostly focus on salsa because salsa is a way to speak to our young people as well. And the idea of the exhibition is however old you are, is that you can move in the exhibition, and it culminates in a dance floor. But outside of the dance floor, we
It's
look
at the
Vogue.
Museum of the City of New York.
It
and
is. It's
called
on El
Stomp.
Barrio on 103rd.
Yeah, Stomp.
No, Urban Stomp.
Oh, sorry, long one,
I'm
wrong
gonna say
one.
it slowly. Urban Stomp, Dreams and Defiance on the dance floor.
There we go.
And then lastly, it also talks about, as you're talking about the Puerto Ricanness of hip hop, but also of the hustle and Latin hustle, as well as the late Willie Estrada
Yes.
is in that as well.
A dear friend, and I should acknowledge that Willie recently passed. Thank you, Derek. And Willie Estrada really, speaking of making sure that we always combat erasure, he unfortunately passed away last month. He was only 69 years old, and he is from the South Bronx, born in Puerto Rico. He invented the Latin hustle style of dance as a way to bring peace between young people in organized gangs who had a lot of energy and not a lot of safe spaces to express that energy.
Yeah.
And it's really important work,
Yeah.
you know, and he's a part of that exhibition as well.
Let me call out someone who left us too soon as well. Actually was a mentor of Randall. Her name is Marvette Perez.
Oh, Marvette, yes.
Marvette Perez was a Puerto Rican curator at the National Museum of American History, which is
She was
where
a
I
very
worked.
early supporter of American Boricua, by the way.
No doubt,
Yeah.
makes absolute sense.
Yeah.
I bring her up only because she was the one who initiated Hip Hop You Don't Stop, the collection of hip hop at the Smithsonian. This predates the National Museum of African American History and Culture and all the work that they've done. She created that collection, right? A Puerto Rican woman, right?
She was the one that told the rest of the United States that there were Puerto Rican members of the Sugar Hill Gang. A lot of people didn't know that.
Yeah.
That you know, the Black American experience and the Puerto Rican, the New Yorkian experience had so many parallels and intersections.
Felipe Luciano was the last poet.
Yeah, yeah,
Right? We've
Yeah.
been there since the beginning.
yeah,
It was before the beginning.
right.
Questions?
No questions? Come on, people.
Oh, there's a microphone so our audience on YouTube can.
You have these two people every day, you know?
I'm not Puerto Rican, but I'm a fan. I'm Venezuelan.
Yay!
I know, Wilson.
Bienvenido.
Gracias.
Europeans here.
Thank you. We do our best. Bueno, a lot of Venezuelans do think that they're Europeans, let me tell you, man. I'm getting a little bit sick of my people lately.
Not all Venezuelans.
Not all Venezuelans, that's true. So I've done a few projects in the whole U.S. Latino theme experience, and one of them, the latest one, is called American Latinos, 1935, 1945, and it focuses on the FSA photographs. I didn't look at the 170,000 photographs, but I look at the 30,000 photographs that have the words Español, Americano, Puerto Rican, and Mexican. And I did this installation that includes a very important photograph, which is the Ponce Massacre.
Yes, yes.
So, you know, because it's a 15-minute, also it's only a 15-minute installation that plays on a loop, I couldn't explain what happened in the Ponce Massacre. I simply used the caption that Edwin Roscom wrote when he was there, and he took the picture of the aftermath of the massacre. They don't have any photographs of how they murdered these people and wounded hundreds. But so I had to come up with a line because a lot of Latinos would come to me and say, you know, what's the Ponce Massacre? And I would say, shouldn't you know that?
Yeah,
Because the truth is that I didn't know what the Ponce Massacre was until I found a photograph. And then my friend, I'm going to say her name, Maria Elena Alvarado, who grew up in the island, she's a smart girl. She went to Harvard and everything. She came to see it, and I'm like, did you see? You know, I included the Ponce Massacre picture. And she's like, what is the Ponce Massacre?
Wow.
And I'm like, but you grew up in the island.
Well, that's part of the colonial reality, is that the school system doesn't actually tell the truth of what the history of their, you know, immediate communities embodied.
And that's what she told me. She was like, they don't teach us these things in Puerto Rico. So my question for you is, when you're having this conversation with Puerto Ricans from the island, what happens? Because I have the feeling that actually Boricuas in the continental U.S. are more Boricuas than people in the island, simply because they have this experience of otherness that when you're in Puerto Rico, you might not have. But that's the question. I mean,
no, that's actually a very good
I like the
question.
question too,
And
yeah.
it depends, because geography still matters, right? Regionalism still is an important reality, and the landmass of this part of North America that encompasses the mainland United States, I really can't describe it to you unless you have driven through all 4 time zones. You know, it's big. And the Puerto Rican experience in a place like Boise, Idaho is going to be very different than the Puerto Rican experience in a place like New Orleans, Louisiana, right? In particular, the far-flung places, I have found in my 20 years of doing this work that it is island-born Puerto Ricans that are willing to take jobs in very remote parts of the United States, because the urge to migrate is a very inherently human urge. It doesn't understand or recognize borders and rules. It is part of being human that we all have family members that pick up and leave. I remember having this conversation with Petey's widow, Susie, and she said, you know, Wanda, nobody leaves Puerto Rico because they want to. People usually leave because they can't eat. So the economic realities are also important to consider, you know? And to get to your question specifically, I think the last 10 years that's changed a little bit. The internet and the exchange of information and the immediate technology and the way that people can stay connected in real time has made it a little bit easier for the diaspora to engage with, you know, our immediate family members that still live on the island, but also people who have basically like repatriated themselves.
Yeah.
Particularly since COVID. I have a lot of artists friends who pretty much gave up on North America and went home.
I mean, things have changed, but I also would push back a touch and say there's always been there. There's always been people who knew this work. Their work wasn't lifted up. Their work was not empowered. Their work was not encouraged.
And it wasn't funded either.
None of those things, right? I mean, I found videos that were done in the early 80s, late 70s that teach the same thing now that they're teaching in the Africana Studies courses that MITA does. They've been teaching it, right? There was a book, the gentleman's last name is Baralt, and he did a whole series on all of the slave revolts in Puerto Rico. Ask me how many of my cousins know about slave revolts in Puerto Rico. None.
Yeah.
They don't know anything about slave revolts in Puerto Rico.
Well, a lot of people don't even know that.
But that book was written on the island, though. It's not like he did that here. He did that there.
Yeah.
It just wasn't lifted up, right?
Yeah.
We have to remember, too, that this is the United States of America, right? We live in a country where black people didn't even know that the Tulsa Race Massacre happened.
That's
So
right.
We can't expect Puerto Rico. I mean, there was a TV show that had to be made in order for most of us to know what happened.
Think about Roots.
I was just going to reference Roots, yes.
So, you know, you talk about all the time zones and how different those experiences are. I've actually lived as a kid in all the time zones growing up.
You were a military kid.
No. We were just poor.
Okay.
We were looking for opportunities.
Got it.
How about
So
that?
we went from New York, we went to Michigan because there was work in factories there that my father could get work with.
Right.
So I lived in the Midwest, in Holland, Michigan, a very small town. From there we went to Los Angeles. But my point is that I didn't know I was Puerto Rican until I was in Michigan.
Wow.
Right? Because my teacher couldn't say Echevarria. My legal last name. And so she used to call me Echestach.
Wow.
Wow. And she used to call me Echestach every day for roll call.
Wow.
And then one day, I don't know, I was in a bad mood. I said, my name is Echevarria. You know? And from that day on, she said the name. But my point is that if you're in Puerto Rico, growing up in Puerto Rico, you don't have to defend being Puerto Rican.
Right.
You don't have to teach people about who you are, right? Like growing up, I was, everybody thought I was half black and half Mexican in Los Angeles.
I got Brazilian a lot growing up,
You know?
with its Italian sounding name.
I get what you're saying, because when you're outside of of Puerto Rico, you have to put on an armor.
Yeah.
Right? That doesn't allow you to disappear when people don't acknowledge what and who you are.
And the other thing also I wanted to touch on is that the diversity within the Latino community, again, regionalisms. I spent quite a bit of time when I was working on that exhibition with Omar at the Civil Rights Institute. Boy, there's a lot of interesting ideas about what a Latino is in the state of Alabama if you're not Mexican.
That's right.
Oh, wow. Well, gee, I'm walking down. This is the thing that I do, and I encourage everyone to do this when you're traveling. If you're in a new town or a city, go to the richest neighborhood and then go to the poorest neighborhood. And you're going to get a really interesting perspective of what that place is like. Like, read the want ads. If there's like a free local paper, just look through the classifieds. You're going to get such a real take on what daily life in that place is like. And I was walking down the street. I was with Ahmad. I was with Jasmine Reyes, who's a big community person from the island in Birmingham, and one other person, and we were all chatting away. Ahmad doesn't speak Spanish yet, but we're working on that. And it was a lot of Spanglish. The jaws that dropped, and like you could just see people's minds being blown. We're in the shopping mall, I'm like, oh, let's go to the mall. I want to look at a mall in a city I've never been in. And this was when my work was in a different exhibition many years ago. I think he'd only been at the museum for about 2 years. And I had to get used to being this symbol of something and someone that someone else could not possibly imagine, you know, being a black Puerto Rican, being a woman traveling alone, all of the things that, because the U.S. educational system, particularly in public schools, still teaches an extremely inaccurate and siloed history of who we are. I mean, the Revolutionary War is much more nuanced than what we were taught. You know,
Definitely.
throwing the tea in the Boston Harbor. Oh my goodness. Poll taxes, who could vote? And again, the question of who's an American and who is free. We are still asking these questions in the year of our Lord 2026.
I also wonder, on your point, if there's anyone in the audience that grew up in Puerto Rico.
I'd like to share something.
For at least
You want-
20 years.
Responding to your question, and I'll probably do this Spanglish now because I grew up.
Can you go to the mic, Victor? It's for the YouTube video so that our audience can hear. Gracias.
Buenas noches a todos y todas.
Buenas
Un
noches.
placer. It's been a pleasure being here. And this is a very, very important space. This is a sanctuary of Puerto Rican culture and civilization. And I'm glad I'm here. And I'm glad
We're so happy you're
I'm
here
surrounded
from
by the people to my
Rincon.
right and
Represents.
from Rincon, Puerto Rico. Auto exiled from San Juan to Rincon, and I'm a happy camper in Rincon. I just wanted to add, I grew up in the island, and I share very humbly, and the back and forth thing, and responding to the gentleman's question is, the state owns the narrative on Puerto Rican culture. They decide what they expose the students to or not. There are many instances in life, in Puerto Rican life, that Puerto Rican history was not even part of the curricula of the Department of Education of Puerto Rico.
Who has controlled that for the last?
That's the state, ¿verdad? The state.
It's usually just a footnote if you're
Yeah,
even lucky to learn about the 1898.
Yeah,
Sí,
exactly,
sí.
Yeah, basically all the people who've been in power, right, who've been in power, that, and then, for example, and years ago, and this is part of the struggles of a lot of Puerto Rican teachers and very strong syndicates, I grew up with a book, a silly book saying, Puerto Rico, un país de escasos recursos naturales. Puerto Rico, a small country with very few natural resources. Boom, fucking first grade.
Wow.
Okay? With that, so that creates this mentality, that's Frantz Fanon, that creates a whole mentality of dependency and of colonialized minds. How do we work it in Puerto Rico? It's in terms of debunking that history and getting to know the other history. A lot of work from like Mayra, and a lot of work from the professors of the 70s, ¿verdad? La otra cara de la historia, the other face of history, from down up. That was a big movement in the 70s.
I would argue it's through artists.
Well, it's multidimensional. It's multidimensional struggles, and something like people, and I went through this too. They talk about our patriots, Lola Rodriguez de Tio, the 19th century, 20th century, Don Pedro Albizu Campos, etc. And we go through this experience that a lot of us have not been able to literally get to know their descendants. Their sons, their granddaughters, their grandsons, etc., and to touch them, to touch our patriots or the descendants of our patriots, because they're so far and they're so abstract, And when they talk about Dr. Ramón Emetero Betances, el padre de la patria, it's one or two lines. Advocating for independence of Puerto Rico.
The whole point is that they don't talk about it.
Right, they don't talk about it. Then they focus a lot on the abolitionist movement, etc., because it's been criminalized. The history of Puerto Rico has been criminalized because there's a history of resistance and a history of constantly combating the colonizer and maintaining and reaffirming our identity through multiple means or areas of struggle. Tu sabe, that's what we live constantly. But then again, Bomba brings the cultural renaissance in Puerto Rico has been tremendous, which is another way to bring in who's Don Pedro, who's Don Betances, who's Lolita, who's Blanca Canales, ¿verdad? It's a country. Well, I think I really recommend that we go back and revisit Frantz Fanon and MSSR, ¿verdad? Because you're going to see the same thing going on, but it's just different uniforms, ¿verdad?
Right.
Pero nada, gracias.
Una cosa rapidito. Cuando están hablando yo me acuerdo de la clase de estudios sociales en tercer grado, que la maestra ponía un mapa. Entonces el mapa decía, mira Puerto Rico, qué chiquito. Entonces, mira Estados Unidos, qué grande. A esa edad te están dando un complejo de inferioridad. Por eso cuando yo leía a Fanon, decía, mira coño, mira lo que me estaban haciendo desde chiquito. Tú sabes. Y esto era una realidad. Y tú ibas a cuarto grado en la misma cantaleta, quinto grado la misma cantaleta. Entonces, pues ya desde niño te están dando esa cuestión. Y para acabar, hay un número de Fernando Palombo que lo grabó con un libre que se llama Imágenes Latinas. Check out that tune, put it in your playlist. It's an incredible tune. Que dice, somos americanos desde arriba hasta abajo. ¿Tú me entiendes? No solamente ese país puede ser considerado americano, sino todo. Gracias por la presencia. Yo creo que ya te conocí a ti en otra ocasión, pero es un placer haberte conocido aquí otra vez y desde luego Wanda, gracias por su presencia.
Gracias de mío, gracias.
I was just going to say one last thing.
No, please.
You know, it's not an accident that we don't learn our history because
Yeah.
we can't expect a country that made it illegal
Right.
to wave our flag
Right.
to teach us our history.
Right.
It was never going to happen. It was always about blending into an American ideal that didn't
Yeah.
really exist.
The whole reality of being encouraged to assimilate. I remember being in the second grade, and there was a movement in the public school system in the northeastern United States for all children that did not speak English primarily to not speak Spanish in school.
Yeah.
And that was hard. I remember feeling so bewildered. And I would come home and I'd be like, so Mom, like what is, it's like being told that there's a glass of milk on the table, but you pick it up and put it to your lips and it's Kool-Aid. It's exactly what it felt like.
Yeah, let me just be real serious for a moment, because I remember I spoke at the Institute of Genocide and Mass Atrocity Prevention, which is part of SUNY Binghamton. And I was there with a bunch of human rights activists, and we were like the only cultural people there. And whatever was reminded was, when you look at genocide studies, the first thing that people who want to commit a genocide, they erase your history and culture,
Yes.
and then you become less than human. Nobody should run past the fact that our Constitution, that some people revere as the Bible, says that African people are supposed to be
Property.
3/5,
Property.
right? This is the Constitution. That God forbid somebody says something against it, right? This perfect document, right?
Yeah.
These things have to be contested with proper education, proper critical analysis. My wife and I, we homeschool our kids. And we homeschool our kids for many reasons. One of them is so they can be critical thinkers,
Yes.
right? They can discern. They can research, right? They can come up with a conviction that means something, that can carry forward in their lives, right? And that's what we're up against. When we have erasure leads to dehumanization leads to genocide. That's real.
And it's happening here now.
Yes.
Our, the history of people of color in general, not just
Yeah.
Puerto Ricans, but African Americans.
Absolutely.
People,
Absolutely.
the
Absolutely.
indigenous people. I mean, the need of this government for us to assimilate is overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of embracing what they tried to sell us in the beginning, which was a melting pot. A melting pot means that you get to melt your culture into this one.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
What I want is a salad. Yes.
Mm.
Where a tomato gets to be a tomato, lettuce gets to be lettuce.
Waldorf salad for democracy. Yes.
You know, and they're all in the same bowl, and
Yeah.
it tastes good. But I don't want to blend into something else.
I agree with that, and I would say because we're at this political, social, economic, and deeply spiritual apex, it's critically important to stay both on the right side of history and also to be accurate. accurate in our ideas, in the scholarship we engage in our motivations in bringing the truth, which is often extremely uncomfortable and inconvenient for people who have every interest in maintaining the status quo, which is going to kill us. Mm-hmm. If we stay stuck in the status quo of what an American is and who is free, we're not going to make it, right? But we're doing this, and this means that there's another way.
Your comfort zone and fragility is going to kill me, right? Literally. Right? We all have to stretch outside of our comfort zone, right? In order to combat fragility and combat these types of things that continue to build up these walls of hostility that really shouldn't exist in the first place. There's no reason for them except for people utilize them to enact power.
Very well said. All right. So it's 7:30. We can close it out then and now. Thank you so much, Omar. It's really, really been a pleasure hearing you with Wanda. Thank you to our audience. Thank you, Pepe, as always, for staying presente. I also wanted to let you all know that the exhibition has been extended, actually.
News to me.
Yeah, so,
all right, vamos.
Well, the new closing day will be March 17th, if I remember correctly.
No, it's the week after.
The week after.
I'm going to be
the 20-something.
with Dr. Maida.
Anyway, so we have flyers on the windowsill if you're interested in letting your friends know and colleagues to come and check it out. Feel free to grab one, and I just thank you again. Have everyone a good night.
And if you want to,
definitely check that out.
And if you want to, and if you'd like to learn more about the book and its history, it's really easy to find me online, AmericanBoricua.com.
And Omar, could you also tap in your podcast?
Yes, my podcast is at the Museum Jedi on Instagram. Hello, everyone. And my website is museumjedi.com.
Museum Jedi. Thank you so much, Omar, again. Thank you, Wanda. Have a good night, everyone. Adelante.